Alright, hello everyone, my name is Mark Tejan, and today's session we will create a female head base mesh made from separated objects and create a form like this. And so this is basically it's a model head that allows you to have a better control over the shapes, especially when you are a beginner or you want to use it for multiple purposes. You don't want to redo all the time the head base mesh. So this is like a mannequin in a little bit more detailed form. Now, in order to create it, so this is like the result that we are creating, but I will show you the steps of how to create from this one, which one is included in ZBrush. So if you're using Lightbox with a command key, or on the top left you will see the Lightbox command, then you can use this particular head, which one is I will talk about in details what type of head this one is, and we can end up with a result like this. Again, the goal here is to create this particular head. I will give you alternatives to how to reach and model another retopologized or automatically retopologized head. So the whole session will start with an introductory, a little bit of a theory on how to understand and how to use various tools in 3D and in drawing in general, in art. So we will touch on those. Let me show you these. And I will give you the examples and a few directions. So let us start right here. And this is the theory part. All right, so when we are watching anything, our brain processes what we see and tries to understand what's going on. And in theory, this process is about simplifying the known shapes into something that's easy to recognize. And these kind of building blocks can help you to recognize what you actually see and help to differentiate between the known or previously seen objects. So if you check these examples, we have this mug here, and it is consists of two shapes. We have this cylindrical shape, and we have this kind of an arced shape, like for this handle part, and that's it. When we have this barrel-like feeling or anything like that, or the lampshade, we can easily identify a few geometrical shapes that can help us to understand what's going on. Let me just move on here and show you this. So in this page you will be able to see a little bit more of the background about the Geons. Okay, now so let's go back to the PDF, and here's an example of how to use it in practice. So when you have these shapes, what you do basically, you are recognizing, so let me show you this, you're recognizing the shapes around and the basic structures, perspective, angles, axis, if you have an axis that's going around. Now this consists of a cylinder. We have a conical shape. We have another cylinder. We have a barrel form in the end. And there is two shapes, and they are not intersecting, but there is a shadow, and the shadow is the light direction is coming from here. This is why this part is a little bit darker, and it projects onto the surface, and of course it will create that shape. So this is a little bit rounded in the beginning, and then it will be straight because this edge is straight. And as you see, the light is turning here, so we have a bright area, we have some highlights here, and we have a dark area, and we have a reflection going around. And if you want to know more about this in general, there's a great article that explains why drawing is important. And if you are if you want to be a good sculptor, you have to have an understanding at least in this, even if you're not practicing drawing that much. However, I'm just encouraging you because it's a great practice exercise for eye-hand coordination. So you can know more about this. This is about a 10 minutes read. It will go through a lot of things and reasons why drawing is a good technique and what's the principles you can use. Okay, so let us go back to this and progress forward. Here is an artist originally from Poland, Tamara de Lempicka, and she created some great figures with the same principles. These figures are nothing else, just representations of these basic shapes. So we have this neck shape, we have this intersection, there's a bit of horizontal kind of barrel thing, we have the perfectly round shoulder joints, another cylinder going down, another jointed area, we have this oval elliptical type of shape with a cross section like this, and as you see the shadows and the lines, they're also describing that. Here the hand is more like a cubical shape with all these angles, and the nose is like a slab, so we have a round shape and then this nose is inserted in it, and we have a flat nose bridge, for example. We have a big spherical cylindrical semi type of shape, and a cutout for the eyes to create the eye socket, and we have an inserted eyeballs. Again, it's a little bit oval shape regarding to the eyelids, and as you see this perfect eyelid here, it's almost like a hemisphere. Okay, and if you go smaller and smaller, you will see these shapes in the chin, like the double spherical parts. We have a cylindrical shape around the bottom of the lip and more. So here we have the cylindrical shape, the spherical shape, and the cylindrical shape that's going in to that, and this is the edge of the cylinder that's going in. All right, so you can explore more. There's more art of Tamara de Lempicka if you want to explore it further. Here's another example of this abstraction of the real life into simple shapes, and this is a kind of an extreme one, but it's a really nice representation how far you can go with it. So here we have these main orientations of the, for example, the head. We have the primary shape, and this is the primary shape. It's like a Transformers figure, if you wish. Then we have some cutoffs to define the edge of the face, and we have a cavity cutout, so that is for the eye, and here's another flat surface. And here's the nose. This is another flat surface. Now, these are quite hard to sculpt if you're sculpt from one piece. But what we can do is we can go back to the first idea and use these individual elements and combine them into one big shape. And let me explain why we do care about this. So just in a second. Because when we have multiple items, sculpting becomes a little bit more hard, especially if you're not practiced as much, or if you want to create a model that could be used later on for different projects. And this is why we call them base meshes, because they are just starting points for future projects. So if we are going to ZBrush, let me just quickly create a new model, a new sphere, and Shift F and make it a polymesh, and Ctrl D, subdivide it a couple of times, Shift F. So now this is a polymesh model. If we have the BST standard brush, this is the default. Here you can start sculpting. Okay, so let me explain one thing. When you have a form, usually let me go back to the presentation and see this. And okay, so here we have this mastoid muscle. Here we have this neck element, and this is the trapezius going on. So when I highlight it, this is the cross section of this shape. Let me check this. The cross section of this shape is a little bit rounded. Then we have a little bit more flat area, and then we have another rounded one. So this is the cross section. This is the rhythm of the cross section. If I draw it in bigger, we have one bump, a smaller bump, and another bump. Okay, so this is the cross section, but this is without skin. When you have the structure like this, so one smaller and the bigger one, the skin comes over it, and skin will create an overlay, and it will create this little wavy thing. So what you see, this superficial part, is basically just the skin, but what you have underneath it is the model itself. The problem with the sculpting it this way, you can sculpt directly the skin. If you are an experienced sculptor and you know what to do, you can do it. But it becomes a little bit harder. So let me show you here what's going on with this. So when you start sculpting, you can sculpt a bump here, sculpt another bump here, and another one like this, and smooth it out. So now we have this rhythm. But the problem with that is you don't have as much control how these lumps are connected. And you may want to add a wrinkle here, or you may want to make it more flat. And it becomes a little bit more problematic. You don't have any tools to edit it. This is one process. You can do it you can do it if you are experienced, but it's not an easy process. Another method is if you're combining subtractions. So now we are adding to the shape, but you can combine with subtractions. So BDS, that's the DEM standard, and you can add some negatives in here by using the DEM standard and like highlighting some wrinkles. You can also do that, but you have to control it through sculpting. And the third process, and this is the process we are using when we are creating base meshes, is if you have an object, and let me just insert something. Here we go. Insert a cylinder and V, and I will just subdivide it and Ctrl-Shift-D and drag it, and now we have a much more different control, because we use a BMV great large sized brush, and I'm using the Alt key and pulling it in and out. So Alt key is altering how the move brush is working, so you're not simply moving this left to right, you can move it in and out when you're using the Alt key. And as you see, we can modify the cross section. So alt clicking on the model will allow you to select the other subtool. It's the same thing that you're going on here. And if you press letter N, you can switch between the various subtools. Right now, this is where we are. So, and once you have this individual control, Ctrl W will allow us to change the color for this one to avoid confusion. Then you can have this luxury. And if you want to fine-tune this stuff, and you're ready and you're satisfied with the line of intersection, and it gives you the result, then you can select the top one and go to merge down, merge it, and you can use either Sculptris Pro, or you can use Geometry, Dynamesh, and I'm hitting now just the default Dynamesh, multiple subdivision levels. No, I don't want to freeze it. Here we go, and then you can move in and use smoothing, for example, or you can use the BCL Clay 2 brush, which is great to fill. It's like welding, okay? So if you're familiar with the real life welding, this is exactly like that, so you can smooth it out, and then you have control over the depth of this thing way better than here. Okay, so this is the idea behind the base meshes, and the idea behind using these geometrical ions, these Geons, to simplify a shape, create different forms, and use them as building blocks to build the final mesh, and then combine them and clean up the intersection and relations between each other. Okay, so let me see what's going on with our presentation. So this is kind of an in-between model. That means it's partly anatomical and partly describing the superficial, the surface of the skin. So it's like surface anatomy. But here, our key and most important part is the volume. Okay, so when we are creating these, we are trying to define the volume, try to define how big something compared to the other part, what's the relation, what's their angle. So if I have to clean this up, for example, and make a sketch for myself, then I can just simply create the basic shapes. Okay, we have a volume here, we have another angle here, this is the neck, is it curvy? Yeah, it's going this way. We have this shape here. What's the line of the head? So here's the line. Now we have the nose. Is the chin a little bit behind or not? It's more curvy than that. And so what's the angle? What's the direction of the chin? Is it the ears behind the chin, or is it slightly on the chin? We are trying to create these comparisons when we are watching our model. Okay. So as you see, this is an example of further shapes. It's not regarding to the face, but instead it's touching on the entire body. What you may want to see and observe, it's the difference between the resolutions, because here we have more coarse models and more smooth models. It's technically, it's not that big of a difference, but ideally you want to try it as low as possible to keep the shapes clean and easy to modify and change up and reduce the file storage amounts. So that is the goal in general. This light reference tool is an interesting one. It can help you to understand the lights and relation of the shapes. So when you see something, let me show it in action, is if you play it, the play button is actually creating an animated light. You can use the time slider to change the light angle, and then you can still rotate the model and observe what's going on, and you can change a lot of things in general. Okay, so shift left mouse will allow to change on the light as well, and the directions, etc. All right, this is very good if you want to understand the relations between the shapes. You can do something similar in ZBrush. Let me show that. And that it has a hotkey. So let me go to the original one and zoom in and press Ctrl D to subdivide it a little bit to have better shadows. And we can go on preferences and enable customize, and Shift and Alt, Control and Alt, excuse me, drag this button. And what else we want? We want to store config. So put it below. Yeah, somewhere here. No, not exactly. Usually I'm not using this button because it has a hotkey, but right now it's a little bit easier if you see it. And we have another one, light, and Control and Alt and drag and drop it here. It will create this one. Now, before you start experimenting with the light, here's my suggestion. So please go to the light and save this one, okay? So save this Z lights because it is the default. And if you start moving this dot around, you will not be able to go perfectly back. So if you want to go back to the very, very original light, you should go back and light and load and use the Z lights setting or anything that you have named it. The hotkey for that is Ctrl P. So if you're pressing Ctrl P, you can actually do this and click in a way. Older versions of ZBrush may crash by using this hotkey. It's depending on the version, it's not happening anymore. It was years back, but it's be careful with that. So again, Ctrl P, and if you want to go back and reset, you can do it manually. It's somewhere here, or by loading the file. Sometimes you accidentally, if you're not familiar with using lights in ZBrush, if you click on it, just simply click on the dot, it will bring the light back or forward. So now it's sending it back, it's coming from behind, and you can create an edge light, something like that. But if you tap on it again, it will go back to normal. Okay, so that is about a little bit of a lighting tool, and just let me show this and move on to the next one. This little application is really helpful if you want to understand some of the details on the form. So if you were just practicing or looking around and experimenting, this is a great little tool. However, I'm not suggesting to use it right away for your projects, but let me show it first to actually what this can be doing. So here's the lady, and we have one light. And the first thing is you can reduce the light intensity, which one is helpful if you want to see more of the shapes, and the shapes are not that much washed out. You can change the direction, and as you're changing this direction, you can cast more shadows. For example, just with this, I can see the angle of the line. I can see this secondary shape. This is the primary shape of the mouth, and we have the secondary shape above the mouth corner that can help me. Here, there's another thing that's this line is going on, and here this little area is going upwards. You can also see how clean the center of the nose is. All right, let me go back with this one. Move under. We can rotate around this way to cast a little bit more shadows on the side, and it also allows us to see more secondary shapes here and there. And then you can add another light, which one is starting in the same position. If you click on solo mode, you can just fine-tune this, reduce the changes, the intensity, and now this light is coming from a little bit below, and we'll just reduce the intensity way more, and maybe the color could be a little bit more purplish, and now it's not solo anymore, so I'm combining with this one. All right, it's a great photographical and experimental tool, and as you see the eyes, the bag of the eyes and the line of the eyes, and this is coming up because of this lower angle of the light coming in. Okay, so you can also create screenshots for yourself and save it for future reference, just to have an idea on how you need to distribute the shapes. Okay, so let us go back to the presentation, and this is the last slide I've prepared for this one. Basically, it's a free HD head. It's almost 2 GB. If you unzip it, it will be somewhere between 3 and 4 GB. If you want to save some space, you can reduce some files are duplicated because they have in multiple formats. See it for yourself. It's working great in ZBrush, Blender as well. However, the resolution and everything, it's better if you are opening it with ZBrush. But it will allow you to play with the lights with the trick what I have shown to you, or just simply see how the skin is detailed, because it's a real life scan, so it's actual data. Okay, so that's just for the theory. Now, and we can jump into the sculpting, preparing our own reference, and make that first sculpts, and how to I will discuss how to go on with the parts. All right, let's jump in and create the reference. So what I was mentioning, we have this demo head in the lightbox. I'll just open it, and this is a female demo head. The problem with it is, however, it's a great female head, but it could be more feminine, just by reducing a little bit of the chin size and the nose. Okay, so I will make slight changes. You don't necessarily have to. I just want to give you the understanding on how to make and fine-tune some of the changes. Now, I don't care about right now it has teeth. I'm not worried about the teeth right now. So, and the eyeballs are separated model. I will not really affect the eye area too much, but I will mostly change what's going on around the chin. So as this model is set up, we can check the resolution. So it has no subdivision levels. We can create if we want to make it more smooth. Just first, I'm pressing Ctrl W to have a little bit of a different color. Also changing the skin color for a skin shade 4 and turning off perspectivity, because for editing, that's the best thing for having clean selections. So Shift F, and I'm using the control and masking out the area what I want to adjust. So I will just select this chin part. You can use a lasso masking tool. However, this is just fine. So I will just increase it like this, and control and tapping on the model will blur this. And left view, I'm using the shift key to snap into left view, and this is the right mouse, as you see, right mouse button, or your button of your pen, and control tap outside the model, my bad, and invert it, and then press W. And if we are pressing this one, it will automatically relocate to the unmasked area. So we can further mask things, and I will just reset this and holding down Alt key and move it around freely. So I can just move it slightly to reduce this. So now the nose is a little bit shorter. I'll also go in here and Q Control drag to clean up, and use the BMV move brush to have this influence, and I will just use and reduce the little bit of the chin size. And also the nose, right now it's fairly straight. I will just angle it a little bit. So make it, let me turn on perspectivity. So it's a little bit more feminine. Okay, the chin is fairly strong. It's still fairly strong. A little bit of a smoothing, allow me to have a little bit better control. Maybe this bridge is too much, so I will just pull that out, and looking from front. The tip of the nose could be a little bit smaller. That's it. Okay. And smoothing. Oh, I will just undo now. Maybe it's too much for the nose. And working on the chins. If it's not perfect, it doesn't really matter now. It's just making up changes to have a little bit of a change in the taste in the general. Okay, so that's pulled out. The neck and the chin area, the bottom of the chin could be a little bit more articulated. So I just pull this in. Okay, and BFA brush allows to flatten. And that's generating a little bit cleaner. And I'm not really liking this ear. It looks a little bit large and looks a little bit behind. So I will change that as well using the masking. And tap and control and tapping on a masked area will blur it. Okay, so you have to tap on the masked area. And I'm using to the move perspective to turn off. Set it to in the middle of this unmasked area. So I'll move it slightly forward and rotate a little bit and just pulling in. So yeah, these are not as large ears anymore. Q, and that's it. And looking from the side, let me undo and check this, and I will move them outwards a little bit. So this width is pretty critical. Okay, when you When you are sculpting, you are not just watching the model from eye level. You can and you should model and look around from the bottom. So you look around. The widest point here is usually this one. Okay, so here is the widest point. And usually there's this one's a little bit turning back, and then the ear comes in. So the ear is sitting on the edge of the mandible, on the jaw. Okay, you can also work with other areas. You can rotate the ears slightly if you need. And I'm fine with this now. And maybe I was working on here, so I have to smooth this out. But it's much better. Okay, what else? This area is not like this. Honestly, I think this should be a little bit more inside, so B and B. And my personal preference, but I think this neck is short, so it will give you a better proportion, a better illusion of the size if the neck is slightly longer and you see part of the shoulder or the trapezius. Okay, so that will give you something that's a little bit more accurate. All right, so there we go. And here, I'm not sure this is going that way. So let me turn on perspective and see it. And for the eyes, we can make it look more appealing. Right now, this is very, very uniform. So I will use a BMT brush, which one is a Move Topological brush, and select this and pull this one up. And that's it. Going for a side, maybe a little bit deeper. So change it, and if we wish, we can move this up higher. And probably just add a little bit smoothing on this area. Okay, so we can go perspective, and this is how the whole thing is looking now. Right, so that's the reference. Now, because we want to have this reference somewhere else, right now these are two parters, so you cannot really move around. You can move around the two subtools. It's absolutely doable in ZBrush. However, it is easier if you merge all these, and then you can easily move it around, and you can use the split later on, here split and merge, to separate parts if needed. But right now, this is just a reference. So we'll go with the eye part and use a big move brush, B and V. And we have the teeth inside, so if you are curious what we are doing, here's this transparent. We can just drag these teeth and move them. And symmetry is not even on this. So I'm just really make a mock-up here. So let me turn this off. And right now we can merge them, merge down. Now it's a single mesh. And I can press Ctrl D and subdivide it maybe 2 times. So now this one is looking smooth for ZBrush. And just using the simple smooth to remove that edge that's already visible, Shift D and remove it. I guess it's in the structure. Yeah, it's in the structure. So that's where we are. Okay, so this is our head reference, and we can use it to build up something else. If you look at the video in the beginning, it's different. It's not as harsh, not as strong female face. We can also change this little angle here, and slightly the forehead should be less strong up in here, but that is it. Okay, all right. So we'll move on with this one and create our base mesh with these proportions. So once we have our reference, it could be a 3D scan, it could be mini. But it's most easy if you have a 3D reference, because you can match more volumes easier, at least in the beginning. If you are using pictures, you have to have pictures from a similar person without too much camera distortion. So sometimes it's hard to create and acquire those images. Of course, you can download reference pictures, but 3D is just like in real life. It's just like in a studio. when you have a real person sitting next to you and you're sculpting that head, it's the best practice to learn the fundamentals. So we are using this prepared head, and the first thing is we can customize a little bit the user interface, because we will inserting many objects and we may want to speed up the process. So preferences and configuration and enable customize, enable it and Control and Alt and drag it on here. You may also want to store config, however the hotkey is Ctrl+Shift+I, so it's a good thing to remember. And right away, the first thing that I will do is I will use insert as is. Insert and append are very similar. Insert will place it where you are, and append it will place the new object in the end of the location. So right now, and mostly I'm using insert because it's keeping the hierarchy and not changing up too many things. So that is the go-to tool. So the first thing is to insert a sphere, and my 3D reference is somewhere here. So let me just drag this one and use insert and insert as a sphere 3D. So now this sphere 3D, this is pure ref, by the way. It's called pure ref as an application, so it's a great little tool. And this sphere will be in the center, so I will keep it as is, but the female head will be moved around. Now if you see this weird movement, it's happening because you have symmetry on. So if you turn off symmetry by hitting X, now we can move it without any hassle, and this 3D head is moved the right way. I'm using Alt key and tapping on the 3D sphere and scaling it down until it matches, and this will be kind of a skull. So let me turn off perspective, because that's one of the main reasons we are using the 3D reference. We can match it. There are different tools in ZBrush where you can match even better. However, from a creative standpoint, we don't want to make it perfect. We want to understand what we are doing. And understanding is happening through comparison. And the more you train yourself to compare the volumes, to compare the shapes and observe, the better you will be when you are creating your own content. So now I'm happy with this one. This is just a simple oval shape. I will not go any crazy, and I will switch to draw mode and make sure that we have symmetry on. And BMV move brush is our friend. So this is the sphere. We have a pole. I will get rid of those, but right now I'm just pulling this a little bit, maybe even bigger frames. So I'm using a bigger brush size and just pull it slightly, and from the front I will just tap it on here, pull it on, and that's it. So now that's the first part, and I will create the next part. So there will be another insert and 3D sphere, and switching to move, and just simply moving down, slightly scale it, and I will pull this, and this will be the chin part. Okay, so this will be the chin part. We have to model a little bit more about this whole thing, but it's not any crazy thing to go around. So let me press Q, and I will just use simply and push this up and pull this down as a chin. And not many brushes used yet, so I'm just pull it in, just basically not going any crazy, just simply tracing the silhouette. So that is, oh my god, it's just forgot to turn on the symmetry, because it's, yeah, X symmetry, so you can undo a million times luckily in ZBrush. So pulling the chin, pulling this in, and this is the front, moving, looking around. This area should be a little bit more flat, so I'll use the BFA flatten brush and just flatten it, and just flatten it, and also flatten from here. If we are using a different material like a blend material, that's will give us a slightly better feedback. However, Looking for, let me turn this off for now, and look for the material, like the basic material, this one. It's not as dark in all areas. MV and moving it in. So chin, great. This is pushed in because we have, and the resolution is fairly big, so this is why it's not as smooth as it could be. Okay, so that's the chin. Great. Front, we can go a little bit wider, so that would be, this is why we are using the 3D shape, because we can check the angles. Okay, so here we have an angle, so this is what I'm looking for. Let me bring back my drawing tools. So we have this ear area, we have this angle, this is what I'm looking for, this angle here. We have the chin area, so this is the chin area, it's going to match. Something else, we are taking on this line, and this is the line we're looking for, and the angle here, and that still requires some work. So here volume is missing. Maybe if you check this part, that point should be somewhere here, and that's missing from that part. So here will be the eye sockets and all the models, yeah, in this area. Okay, so that's what we have to take care of, but we will build more and more. And right now this volume, this is a little bit more out, so this should be lots more closer to this area. So I have to get rid of this part and move it closer. So those are the upcoming tasks. And so here I will try to pull this in to make the chin a little bit more pointy. And this top part, I will go to front mode and using the Alt key and pull this out slightly, and that is generating this area, and the BFA brush will help me to flatten this top to create a forehead, and flatten the side to create the temple, basically. So now we have this triangular shape that's coming here, that's somewhere here. Okay, so when we're drawing that, and of course, because it's we try to understand the logic behind how it's built, we can use this BMV brush and pull this out slightly so the nose will be placed here. I'm not trying to sculpt the nose from this one, okay, but this is the top area, and maybe this is too flat, so I will just try to pull it out and pull this one a little bit back, and that's it. So smoothing it out, there we go. Okay, now I'm happy with these two. Okay, I know there should be more, but I will wait a little bit until I have the nose placed, but these are the primary shapes for that. Maybe adding a little bit of the volume here. Shift F to make sure, see, this one's active, and the cheeks are slightly stronger, so I will add to the cheeks. Okay, great. Now it's time to think of the neck. So the neck could be a cylindrical shape, and again, this is the default one. I will just stretch it out and shrink it slightly, rotate it around, and see for myself. And I will make it longer because, as I mentioned before, it's slightly better if you have the clavicles included in the trapezius a little bit, and the mastoid muscle around the neck, and those type of skin muscles. So that's fine. Let me check this resolution. Okay, and one more thing, it's the angles, the curvature of the neck, because right now it's angled a lot, and in real life it's kind of an arced thing. So what we can do to make it cleaner, we can use the bend curve and increase the number of the curve points by using and dragging this orange cone, and I can pull this one up and pull this one down, and that generates this kind of curvature, which one is a lot better. And what else we can do is we can change the width. For example, here, this is the overall width, but I can change the width like this and change the overall. So let me show you this oval shape is coming in. This is about ovality, and this is about overall size. Okay, and if you're using this one, this is rotating things around, so we don't want to touch those orange cones regarding to the points. This is just adjusting the point number, so be careful. Every situation is a different, it will give you different options. If you're not familiar with this, just spend some time with it and pick up the experience. So right now, maybe the size is too much, so I can this one, shrink it slightly down because we have more muscles. And here, probably a little bit wider in this direction and pull them. Okay, so I like it this way. Or do so. Yeah, different angles. Okay. Yeah, and we can sculpt on this. Right. Right, perfect. So if we want to finalize this choice, you don't necessarily have to, but you can go to bend curve, and then you can adjust the curvature. Sometimes it's hard to pick up these settings. So bend curve and gizmo, you can switch back to gizmo if you want to move it. You can switch to bend curve if you want to adjust it, and if you're good with this one, you can accept. Alright, so this is one way how to use the built-in modifiers within ZBrush. There's another modifier, and if you're familiar with ZBrush, you may know already that we have ZRemesher, which one is an amazing tool, and also available in other applications, not just in ZBrush. However, I still think it works the best in ZBrush. What you can do is use ZRemesher. So it's symmetrical here, and remesh by ZRemesher. And this allows us to have a little bit better control over the geometry. So the problem with it, this geometry, for design purpose, it's not good. It's too dense. If it's too dense, it will give you too much information and not a generic shape. We want to keep it as simple as possible. And the other thing is we have hotspots, and we don't want to keep these hotspots like we have it here because of the pole nature of the 3D sphere. So what I will do, I will just turn on symmetry X left to right by pulling it, so it's 0 or 1, that's true or false. And I'm just pulling this value, and now I can read that little highlight item and stop it around the 1000-ish range. And these 1000 polygons are pretty good. Okay, we can go further or we can go lower, but as I see the curves here, it will give plenty of control to have this overall design geometry topology that allows us to have flexibility. Okay, so I'm good with this one, and it was about 1000 points. Okay, so let me hit accept, going on this one, and repeat the process. So tapping on it and go to remesh by ZRemesher, make sure symmetry is on, and it remembers my previous setting. And the polygon count, it remembers the previous polygon count, which one was 1000, so I'll keep it somewhere in that range. I'm not satisfied with this one here, so I will just change up the values to make it a perfect 1000, and as I see, it's good. Okay, so now it's a lot better, and I will just hit on and click accept. And the same thing is happening here. We can check the actual polygon size. This is 482. The problem with this is if you want to sculpt this area or you want to smooth it out, these are triangles and it's not really good for subdividing. So for this reason, we are making that same choice by remeshing it. And this is the same 1000, so I would just tap on it and just to see it. I don't necessarily think we have to have that 1000-ish. Let me go lower. So this is fine for now. If you see the facets, that you have for the head. The general rule is if you have somewhat similar faces, especially for the similar volumes, it's a good range. So now these are mainly similar volumes, so we can go with 1,000-ish range. Okay, let me give it a try to get back my settings, and just hit accept, and there we go. So this is where we are now, and progressing forward. So we need eyeballs, we need eyelids, we need nose, and things like that. So I will go with the nose, and that's another cylinder. So go in and cylinder and shrink it down. And right now symmetry is not turned on for me, so I'm really careful not moving this left to right. I'm just moving up and down, up in front, and rotating in exactly in that area. So I'm not worried about breaking symmetry in any ways because I'm paying attention to not moving things around. So this is where, okay, it's fairly big, but if you want to create like an animal head or a werewolf, you can get ideas now. So it's typically the same. We are progressing with this one, moving it around, and that's basically the volume. Okay, so that is basically the volume we are looking for. Selecting this one and Q and using the move brush and moving this one, pulling this out, and this one is pulled out as well. Now selecting this guy and just pulling forward. That's where we are. Okay, now placing the eyeballs. Eyeballs can be a little bit tricky. Sometimes you can't do them as with a single object. Sometimes you are combining multiple objects or using booleans. Right now we'll just use simple spherical items, so sphere 3D. And the only trick that I use is I'm rotating this and holding down the shift key and make sure it's the pole of the sphere. The pole of the sphere is pointing towards us because it helps us to understand where the pupil is located, the iris, the center of the iris, and that's as a geometry, we are really interested in having a good position for that. Okay, so that's it. Moving around, it's pulling out too much. There we go. Okay, so that's the location of the eye, and the eyeball, it's fairly big, so I'm reducing this slightly, and we'll move on from here. But before I move on, I will create and duplicate and create the eyelids at the bottom and the upper one as well, because that can help a lot with us. Okay, so here, this is definitely too wide, so we need to use a little bit of help. So going on and select remesh by ZRemesher, we can reduce this count, and right now I'm happy with this one, and accept it and turn on symmetry, don't forget, and turn on Q to go back to draw mode, and we can push this in slightly and maybe smoothing here and going in this direction and just moving this down. So I'm not going any crazy, I'm just simply navigating through this and just simply creating the volumes we're looking for. Okay, the more details you have, the more problem you are creating on the go, so try to keep it as simple as possible. So Shift F, this is the eyeball. If you're not sure about the eyeball, you can turn on transparency, and as you see, this eyeball is huge, so we don't want to make that size. Usually you can have one more eyeball in between, so if you Ctrl Shift D and copy it, you can have one more here and one more here and two in the sides. That's the about 5 eyeball width for the eye. The distance is about 66 millimeters or 62, depending on the type of the face. If you're going to in a medical route. Right now, transparency, and I will keep it this way, moving it a little bit further, and then Ctrl-Shift-D and duplicate. And when I'm duplicating, I will increase the size and use a cutting tool to create eyelids, and that will be with a Ctrl-Shift, and I'm using the knife curve, Control and Shift and hold and drag, and I'm using the space bar so it's horizontal now, and I can drag it out and I can cut it off, and as you see we have now a hemisphere. So if we want to make a little bit thicker eyelids, we can do that by scaling, and then I can just open this up, rotate it around as I wish, and that's creating the eyelid. Okay, it's not a perfect way to do it, but it's quite effective. So I can go back now here to the forehead, use the BMV move brush, and just push this back slightly, selecting these, and adjust it. So selecting this and pull it in. Working on the bottom part. So selecting this one, Symmetry is off. There we go. Push this in, smooth this in slightly, and selecting this piece, and Ctrl-Shift-D, duplicate, move it around. I will reset this position and create the bottom one, the bottom eyelid. So moving it to the front and change the angle slightly. Change the angle. There we go. Maybe the bottom eyelid is not as thick, so I can go with this by using the scale. That's fine. Okay, so that is the eye. Maybe opening up a little bit more to have more to the bottom, and here rotating around, and we can still work on this later on. So right now that's the phase we're looking for, and of course there is a shape inside here that's going through, but before we are doing that, it's time to work on the mouth and the lip area. So this nose seems to be a little bit longer than we need, so I'll just pull this back slightly. I'm watching these and observing these, but I'm not worried to copy the content, okay? So I'm not really worried on copying something, because it's right now the structure is we more interested to create. So that's the first thing we are looking for. Okay, so the eye, just to have a little bit better visual feedback, we are duplicating the eyes. One way is to simply going to geometry and modify topology and using mirror and weld, and that's one thing. And as you see, the center of the eyeball is here, so we have to make sure that everything is aligned well. So mirror and weld, now it's there, and select this one and mirror and weld. So this is where we are. Maybe the distance between the eyes is a little bit bigger than we necessarily have, and this structure may be off. I assume that I was not turning off the symmetry, so I'll use a mirror and weld, and right now it's snapping back without any hassle. So there we are. The position of the eye, it's looking good. However, the cavities here need to be managed and addressed. So I'm using X and pull these back a little bit more inside to add some room for these. Okay, so that's what we're looking for the volumes. Great. Okay, here it's time to work on the mouth parts. Okay, so I'm using a little bit of a smoothing here and adding on the mouth. So what's going on with the mouth? For that, we are using insert and cylinder, and it may be surprising what we do with the cylinder, and the reason behind it is because of the shape, the nature of the shape. So the lips are usually like, you have this volume here on the upper part, and let me open my drawing tools, and so you have this kind of triangular shape. It's like a conic shape, and this is like an arc, so it's going like this, and if you rotate it around, you have the same thing. So you have an arc for the bottom lip, and also kind of a conic shape for these parts here, and then we have a kind of a spherical part for the chin. Okay, so that is the logic. So when we are using the cylinder, we are basically creating that, and just in a second I will show you that. So we're going out again. Symmetry is not turned on, so I'm taking care of exactly grabbing the arrows. So now you can get the idea. So this is how the shape is looking, right? So I'm making it a little bit flatter and pulling it down, and as you see, just by adjusting the angles, pulling this out, we can adjust a lot of things. And the most important part of the lip is the shadow here. So it's not about creating the contour, it's about creating the overhang, the angle. So when we are in this angle, we're basically looking to manage to start with this and creating this angle. And here this will be in dark side, so this will be in shadow, and this is the overhang, and we have this kind of triangle shape, and the same thing is happening at the bottom part as well, and you see this angle here as well. So let me go back and go to the front. So that is the upper lip part, and Ctrl Shift the D and move it to the bottom and rotate it around and just pull it back. Maybe the overall length should be a little bit less. So we're pulling this up, change the rotation, change the angle, change the width. So that can help us as well. Okay, move it around, and let's go with that. So here, of course, the jaw seems to be large, so the width seems to be large. Here we want to have a little bit more of something is off with this one. The cheek part. Okay, smoothing this around. The nose is quite wide, so we can reduce the width of the nose. Quite significant here. This mesh could be a little bit higher, and this area could be pulled in. So I'm pulling this up, but this is pulled in as well. Pulling this up, pulling this up. If the details are not enough, we can work on that a bit more, but right now the proportions are there. Probably we have the ears missing, and of course the neck and shoulders could be adjusted. So let's go in this way, and we want to create a mastoid muscle, and again the ears and fellow things. Okay, so let's jump on the ears because they have a strong influence on things around. So what's going on with the ears? And we can turn on perspective and see for ourselves what's going on. And the width of the face, of the head, should be a little bit more pronounced. So that's it's going a little bit lower. So if we check, this is hanging out a little bit more. and the width is looking fine. Maybe the width here could be a little bit more articulated, stronger, and this is too puffy, so we can just dial this down slightly. And here this volume could be, and pull this up. Okay, so we are generating this line that's going between the ears, right? So before we are placing the ears, we can go with this. The jaw line is going there. Okay, perspective, turning on and off. Yeah, this is where we are. Now, inserting the a cylinder again. This will be our ear. I'm working on the left side, and the reason is because Mirror and Weld is making this left to right mirror. So if there's too many objects and it's hard to deal with, you can always turn off the very first one, and that's the female head. And right now we don't see that. We don't necessarily have to see that all the time, and that's just a guideline. If you wish, you can make it more true to the original. You can make it closer. However, it's an unnecessity. It's not really a necessary thing to chase. Working on the angles, working on the position of the ear, thickness. So this is just the ear part, the outer part. We'll also create another one, Ctrl-Shift-D, and that will be shrink down and increase in thickness, and that is the back of the ear. Okay, that's the back of the ear. That's slightly different. Angle is different. So I'm working on that. All right, so this is just basically right now, it's nothing else. It's just a placeholder that allows us to see what's going on. Because this is way too harsh in geometry, so it's too strong, it's a good idea to right away use the ZRemesher tool. So ZRemesh by ZRemesher, we don't necessarily need to use the 1000, so we can reduce it, leave it lower. Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay, so I can live with this one and accept it, and Q and change the size with brush, and holding down the shift key and smooth it around. On hold shift, start smoothing, and then let go the shift, and it will just do a different thing. This is right now, it's much softer, and then we use BMV brush and change the shape and push it into the model a little bit more. Okay, it's more like a stylized ear, but it's right now it's fair enough for us. So moving on this direction. Okay, so the ear is sitting on the edge of the jaws, and as you see, the jaw starts turning back, and then we can see it from below. So let me show this to the other model as well. So here we are, and as you see, the jaw, we have this line and slightly starts to turning back. So we have the main line, and then this little set in here, we have the mandible as a cross section, and then the ears are coming in and going behind. So the ears are basically protected as much as possible. So that's where we are. And if you compare the sizes a little bit too much, so we can just reduce the size slightly more. We can check this one. Okay, what else? We can also rotate this around and make sure it's duplicated. So geometry and mirror and weld. So now it's present there. I clearly see that this head has a lag. So what I'm doing is I'm jumping back and forth, because it's, as you see, try to develop the whole thing as one unit. So that can help a lot. And if I pick something that seems to be off, I try to review that and make my changes. So ear is good. The back of the ear is certainly not that good. So we are just changing that and shrinking it, but we want to make sure it's matching to the ear. And because the back part here, if you see that, let me check that and show this. So here, this angle and the muscles are going down. So here we have a set of muscles that's going on this area. This angle is a lot lower than what we have here. So right now, this is a little bit more. The angle is not as matching to this one. So we have to pull this volume. We have to pull it down a little bit more to give some more room, and it will change the ear location as well. So that's what we're looking for now. Selecting this one. Sometimes the selection is off if you have a large brush size, but for blocking out things, large brush size is the preferred one, so you have to go back and forth with the brush size. So right now I'm just pulling this in and using the Shift and Smooth key to just relax. Okay, just relaxing it. And maybe it's too much in this direction, so selecting the neck and pulling in the neck as well. Selecting this one and just going back the back of the head. Okay, so now this is looking better, and here we are adding on to it. Okay, good. And just pull this down, and I think it's distorted a lot because we had quite a few changes. So as you see, the structure is not supporting our work anymore as it should be. So I'll go with the ZRemesher tool, and just simply slight changes, 1000-ish. And now it's cleaner and we can accept it. Accept and see what's going on, even on the front side, just to check it. This is a little bit of odd edge that's coming on, but with a slight stroke, we can clean it up. Okay, symmetry is not on, so I will just go back and make sure everything is symmetrical. Good. All right, okay, so there we are. Now we have the ears. As you see, it's lightly matching to the figure. We are missing this angle, so that angle could be drawn from the head model. So I will just pull it slightly in and add a little bit of more volume, pushing in here. So that is what we're looking for. So that's the angle, and we can choose and use these and fix some of the areas, and that's basically the rough shape. But before we're doing that, it's time to fix the ears. So moving on, and pull it back a little bit more, and make sure that the ear is not sticking onto the surface. Even if you want to make it stick later on, it's better if you have a good clearance here, okay, or a good clearance here. So because once you're welding this, it will be hard to control. Okay, you can always push it closer to the head surface, but it's not a good idea if you want, for example, modeling hair, having eyeglasses or anything. It's just it's not really beneficial to have that. Okay, so now selecting this guy, changing the brush size again to have a smaller one, and remesh it. So W and hit on remesh, and remesh by ZRemesher. And we don't need that type of symmetry. Actually, we don't need symmetry here, and 500 or even lower. Just checking. Okay, that's fine enough. I'm looking for some size match to the polygons we have. Yeah, because it's a cylindrical shape, it will be always narrower towards the edge. So if we are going to solo mode, you will be able to see that, okay, it's always much more narrow here. So don't worry about this. It's not a big of an issue. at this stage. We are not worried about this. And accept it and go to mirror and weld. And because it's okay, I see some funny issues. This one is because I rotated around and there was no symmetry on, it generated this one. Okay, what I will do, I will use symmetry is on. Symmetry is on. Control Shift and cut it off here, or Control and Shift and use the selection tool, select these and remove everything else. So modify topology, and we have delete hidden, so now deleting hidden and going back to draw mode, or not exactly, resetting this, and now mirror and weld, and it's matching. So if I'm turning on X now and rotating here, it's working fine. If I'm turning on F, turning off X, it will rotate this way. But this is just a quick fix to do. Again, these ears are not exactly matching to the figure, but there's a purpose, because I want to keep it clear as much as possible to have some room for sculpting, because I can fill it up easy, but cutting it, it's not as easy to do so. Okay, looking from the bottom, I'm looking for the rhythm. That looks nice. Maybe the chin here, if I see it now, the chin line is going on. It's more rounded, so let me highlight it for you. So this area is like that. We have this angle here between these, but here it's more rounded. It's more rounded, so we want to change that up, and it's too wide. So if we're checking this size, it's way too wide in here, so we need to pull it in. And Q, and selecting this model, change the size and just push this in. And here's the chin as well. Now for the neck, it's just way too much regarding to the chin. It's just way too pointy, so you have to be careful. Let me undo it and pull on the chin. Okay, pull on the chin, and maybe this area should be smooth, and that's enough if we're just smoothing it. But it's still creating a quite pointed chin. A little bit of a pull. Okay, that's nice. So here, maybe a little bit of an angle. And okay, that's correct for now. And what else we have missing as a part before we are working on the further details? Here, definitely we need a volume. So we need another sphere, and we also need the mastoid muscle and the shoulders in general. And once we have this assembly, then we can clean it up and going to other going on other routes to have a better match. Okay, so next is to create the bottom part of the chin, the throat, namely. So the throat could consist of multiple cylinders, as you see, as a basic shape. So just change the size, change the angle, and we can pull this in. And this sometimes it's enough if we have the volume like this. Is it still perfectly symmetrical? It looks like it is symmetrical. Maybe we can widen it up and pull it down, and just to make sure everything is working fine, we can just create a remesh by ZRemesher, make it symmetrical, going to lower 1000, 5,000, which one is perfectly fine for now, and accept it. So now it's about 1,000 polygon. Here it's about 1,000, 2,000 polygons, 2,000. So we are in that range. Okay, this is lower. We are in that range, so we're not using overly huge amount of polygons. And as you see the shadows, as you see the forms here, we have this form. We can select this one, Ctrl Shift D, copy. So now we have two of these, and basically slide it down and create that other step for throat. Okay, so selecting this one, and again, this is just a mass volume of the neck part. Okay, you're not trying to keep it, and the issue is it's not. You don't have to create the full shape with a single form. Shrink it down, pull it out, extend. Okay, so that's kind of a throat part, and as you see, this is how it looks. And now we can work on the mastoid muscle. If I'm pressing P for perspective, now as you see, we can go in this way. Right, looks nice. Okay, the nose, maybe the nose is a little bit longer than I expected, so I'm going back and forth and I'm just pulling this a little bit up higher, and maybe shrink and create a little bit more softened nose and the mastoid muscle in the back. Now it's time to move on and work on the on other parts as well, and to add more details to it. But before, we should finalize the main volumes. Okay, so we need another insertion of the cylinder for the mastoid muscle. So I'm reducing it, moving it to the side, flatten it, stretch it, and this will be a long thing that will be placed going from the clavicle to the ears. So right now I'm just finding a somewhat basic angle that's matching. It's not perfectly fine, but as you see, this is it. So if I'm opening up my references, this is the reference. So I'm looking for this muscle. It's very thin in this stylized geometry. It's very, very thin. But as you see from the side, it's there. It's better in here, but it's still very, very thin compared to its actual belt-like shape in the real life application. So go Y and let me just drop it. So there we go. It's wide. So I will scale it, stretch it, and this is the width I'm looking for. And the tool I'm looking for is the curve, bend curve. But as you see, the geometry is not exactly supporting bending and twisting, because right now the polygons are stretched out. So to avoid that issue, I will go in and jump into the ZRemesher function. We have the symmetry on. We don't really care about that symmetry right now. 1000-ish range will allow us to have a fairly even structure, which one is much more it's much better for distortions because it has now square polygons. And right now this is one modifier that is used, but it's not applied yet, so I have to accept it, and then going in and choose the right. Okay, it's not picking up again. It's just and that is the bend curve. And now we have 3 curves right away, so I will stick with this one and pull it in and create that kind of a chin area. So it's pulling closer to the body, and we can actually rotate this thing around, scale and rotate, if you remember. So rotate this thing around. This is moving it slightly here. So this muscle is like hugging the neck volume. Okay, it's like going around and it's going towards the ears. I will scale it down and stretch that, this way, and scale it up this way to make it even more flat. That's good. That seems to be good. Okay. Maybe it's too much moving around. All right. So that is the size I'm looking for. It's going from here, and we can still sculpt it here. Maybe this one should be a little bit less strength and pulling it around. And there we go. Okay, so now I'm satisfied with this one. And of course, if you have a tendency to go back and forth between files, it's kind of when you're opening this up in the Lightbox, you can always store your quick saves. So you can find every quick save in the Lightbox. So if you press numpad, just simple 9 on the main keyboard, it would create a quick saved file version of you for yourself. And whenever, if you are crashing or if you want to go back and revisit your file, it could be really handy. Okay, so that's fine. I will accept it and go with and mirror the part. So now it's mirrored. This is looking good. Let me turn off the visibility of that one. And of course, we can use the BMV move brush and turning on symmetry with hitting X. And if we want to fine tune it, we can smooth it out and just moving around a little bit, adding more volume. And later on, we can fit in more sculpts. But that's basically the structure we are looking for. And we can also create the shoulders. So shoulders should be, or could be, basically anything. Right now I will just simply use a huge sphere for that and stretch it out. So insert and sphere 3D and moving it here and shrink it down, stretch it out, pull it down, and make sure it's the right angle. So here, and pull, and of course it's flattened. We can actually rotate this way. So depending on the body you're working for, and now we're going with Q, turning on X, and using BFA flatten brush, and just simply working on the shape. So now this is the back of the figure, so it would be less articulated. Again, the resolution, it's not a big resolution, it's 8000, but it still works a little bit slower than we ideally want. So right now we are creating basically the main angles, and BST, and using the Alt key, turning on L to get rid of the lazy mouse. So it's way too intense, so I just want to pull. I'm using the Alt key to invert the brush movements, and that's it. Reset the location and pull this up. Maybe make it wider, and just to have a cleaner section, we can use the knife tool and cut it perspective off, right to left, and cut it off. So that's kind of a base mesh for us, and we can still recalculate because right now we have the poles, which one is just not needed. Brush size reduced, clicking on it, and ZRemesh, and make it symmetrical, and choose the slightly above 1000. It's fair enough, and click again and choose and accept it, and there we go. I'm going with Q. So Shift F, and that's where we are. Perspective, this is how it looks in perspective. So now we have the set and tools. We can fine tune. Trapezius muscle is missing from here. What we can do is using Symmetry X BMV and pull it up to create that that muscle without going crazy and adding more and more details. So it's just pulling this up. We have the angle around which one could be modified after the welding is done, or doing other parts. So now this is the base mesh basically, and the next step is to fine tune individual elements to make them matching a little bit better, or to get your achieved style. Here, the mouth, for example, which one is, I know it's usually odd to see this one. The quick fix for that is going to press W, remesh it. Again, brush size, just to have it. Brush size, ZRemesh, choose it about, not 4000, but 1000-ish. Okay, then going back, accepting it, make sure symmetry is turned on, X, brush size, using the smooth one, and pull it out slightly. And this is symmetrical. Is this one symmetrical? This one's not. Shift F and let me see what's going on. This was not exactly symmetrical. If I see, it is this one. This was not symmetrical. Yeah, this one was not symmetrical. My bad. And so when you're turning off the wires, you can easily see them. So now it's there. We can use the BIN inflate brush and inflate the lips around to create the bottom lips, if we wish. So now that's kind of a base lip shape. We can select this one and do the same treatment. Brush size and choose and select ZRemesher. Symmetry mode is on. Couple thousands polygons. We need a little bit more. Despite the volume is a lot more smaller. It's still about the 1000-ish range. So accepting it, Q, make sure it's symmetrical, and use the BMV brush and just push this in slightly, create this archy look. So this one's a little bit arced. Here, this one is pulled back, and smooth it. And we can pull this to create the corner of the mouth if you wish. And of course the BIN inflate brush and inflate it on this area. And inflate the middle one. And the BMV brush and moving it, you can create the gap with the lip and smooth more. So it's up to you basically how much you want to control and how much you want to adjust. But this is a back and forth going process. So you can select nose and then use the as dam standard to carve in some parts, so a little bit more defined, remove from here, and flatten and just model the cavities. So BCL clay 2 brush or clay brush, and just pulling in, create this inside part, and then just using the Alt key and creating the nostrils, just to work on how the shadows are created. And then just BMV and pull out this part a little bit, smooth it, pull out this one, pulling out. We're looking from the side view how this looks, pulling on. Okay, so it will add more and more details as you go. Okay, now the upper lip is a little bit closer, so the easy fix is you can right now the chin looks a little bit too front, so you can select the chin and move it in slightly, select the bottom lip, and because it's a separated model, you can do a lot of things and easily change the overall attitude. So you can close it up, or you want to create a bite like this. It's up because the whole structure is modular. You can go miles with it. All right. So that's how we do the general shapes. Okay. So this is kind of the blocking out phase for a model with the key elements. And once these key elements are placed and fine-tuned, then you can weld it together to create the desired look. You can keep this part as long as possible. You can subdivide, for example, if you wish. So here's the face part, and you can select this face part and Ctrl D to subdivide it and start working on. So BDS, damn standard, and choosing this one and just carve in the shape to support the lip part. Maybe you want to change the angle. You can see the angle here. You can see the angle here. If it's not fine, you can work on that. You can go in and add some details around, maybe here a BST polygon. So here it's a positive little shape. You can see this here. This is a little bit of a positive shape. So it's pulling up. That will add to it here. If we're selecting the lips again, we can just push in this little part. So symmetry is on, and we are using BMV, and we can push this back on slightly. Okay, that's also helps us to match the thing. Now the nose, the shape of the nose, the tip is a little bit wide. So to control that, we can select the nose, and you can see how the light is working here. It's very narrow, the light here, and here is quite broad. So we can use the BPI pinch brush, and that will allow us to bring these edges a little bit closer, to make it thinner. You don't want to go overboard, but it's a good idea. You can rotate around and see for yourself. And maybe here, BMV at the top area, we're pulling in, and if you see, it's a closer match. So we are make it wider, pulling up. It's a back and forth. Now here, for example, the volume here is missing, so I want to fill this up. BCL clay brush, and adding more to it. So here smooth, but I want to add more here to create a nicer blend. Even Ctrl D, subdivided one more, and that is helping me to get a better result. Okay, the eyelids, these are not adjusted yet, and as you see, the resolution is still going overboard and crazy, but we can here we have a fairly good structure. So if you want to shape what's going on, this is a clay brush. Okay, so I'm using the BMV brush, so we can start moving things around and work on, especially if we have the symmetry turned on, so we can work on the shape of the eyelids. Moving it up, creating that structure, so that's more like what you're looking for, and smoothing around. Same thing here, so you can select the bottom one, Shift F, and using the move brushes, and create this little oslacrema area, so in the bony structure. So now we have a little bit of a curvature in the eyes here. This corner should be a little bit lowered. Maybe we want to pull. Adding slight expression can be fun. So that's closer to what we're looking for. Okay, so that is the approach that can land you on parts. I'm adding Ctrl D subdivision to the upper the top part of the head, and that allows us to define the eyebrows. Eyebrows are very, very critical. So I'm using BMV, and as you see, the eyebrows, when you use my drawing tools, the eyebrows are going like this. So you have an angle here, and then another angle here, and here. This is quite squarish, the eye socket. So this bone, right now this angle is too much. So if I compare this angle and this angle, it's too much. So it would generate this very like a rooftop shape. which one is not really beneficial for us. So we have to flatten it down slightly. And here, this area should be filled a little bit better. And as you see, if we are watching this cross section, so here we have this positive shapes. These are positive shapes, and this is here flat. Okay, so if you see that these are positive, these are rounded shapes, but here this is more flat and not as rounded. So we have to address that issue. So going in and use the BIN tool. This is the inflate, and I'm using very low volume. I'm not using a 20 or anything like that. I'm using a low volume and just pulling in. Okay, just adding to that. And as you see, it's affecting the overall look of the whole model. The other thing is I'm rotating around and using the BCL Clay 2 brush and adding a little bit of a brow. So this will be the brow, and adding a slight angle here, slight volume, and then smoothing that quite significant to blend it in. Oh, my bad. Changing brush size. Okay, and using the BMV brush to pull out slightly the brow. So when I'm rotating around, I can see this light. Do we have a little bit more glossy? This is a little bit more glossy. Can you see how this reflection turns? And now it's here we have a highlight, we have an edge. And here, this is the edge what I'm talking about. So when I'm rotating, that's the edge I'm talking about. But here, we still have to create a BST brush and just add a little bit more to it. Shift F, is it the right? So adding just a little bit more edge. What's the strength? Very low. So this is why it's barely visible, but it's there. Okay. Yeah. So now it's visible. If I'm rotating around, it's visible and it's cleaner, and it will give us a much more definitive expression. The other thing here, selecting this lower model part, we can push this down using BFA and just flatten this. Let me switch back to a different material, the basic material, and flatten this area slightly. And this is what you cannot really do when you have a model that's fully welded and fully assembled. Okay, so these are the things that you cannot really do. This is why it's so beneficial. Okay, so that's about the structure. Okay, maybe the eyes are a little bit further. So to get that, we want to remove from here BMV and just push this in slightly to have a little bit more room, because we want to see these corners of the eye. Okay, so those corners are quite critical. We want to see those. That's getting closer. Now the ears are usually the typical problem with the ears, and we should recalculate the ears. On that, it's like the ears are here, they are blending to the figure. This helix is turning into the head. The tragus is just protruding from it, and there is this little cavity, and this is also usually blending into the skin. So don't keep it that way, don't keep that border that way. So these are the main principles of creating a head structure. Then I will make a review on the other model that I have created. I will show that to you. And in the next chapters, I will discuss how to clean it up, how to weld parts, and what is the general approach that you can do. All right, just have fun. Okay, all right, here we are, and it's time to create a Boolean object and fix the issues what we have, and look around for a final model that's quite manageable and cleaned up in a good way. Okay, so first of all, right now we have multiple objects. If you want to use it in the future in this form, it's a good idea to make sure that all the resolutions are checked, so you don't have very high resolution or very different resolution. So here in this case we have this at a high resolution, it's not recalculated. However, this is done on purpose because right now the edges are fairly clean. It will be eroded if you recalculate too much, so I will make an exception with these one and keep them as they are, but everything else is fairly small in resolution. If we turn on Shift F and the polyframe is visible and you press Shift R to render it, you will be able to see your general resolutions. And as you see, the mouth part is a little bit higher in resolution, and yes, we have resolution here, subdivisions on the cheeks as well. So for now, we have enable customize and a few things before we moving on. So it's a good idea to save it as is and save a new file for yourself. Right now this is not smooth enough, so I will just right away press Ctrl D and make sure we have that resolution. In here is Ctrl D as well, just to have a little bit of a cleanup. Because this will be sculpted a lot more. So right now it's fine, and also the nose, Ctrl D, and what else should be? It's fairly good. Maybe the throats are coarse, Ctrl D, and these are a little bit coarse as well. Oh, I made another one. So Shift F, and make sure Ctrl D, and that's it. Okay, so that's where we are, and we don't want to keep this head. We don't want to include this head, so I will just start it. Here's this little, let me use the magnifier. So here's the magnifier, here's this little arrow. So if you tap on this little arrow, it's barely visible, but if you tap on this, it will set it to start. That means the Boolean will recognize it. Okay, this object is a separate object, and starts to welding everything that's beneath this object into this one. But if you add another start, this means this is starting, but it's a single item. The number is there, it's 1, and this is a start, and it will weld 16 item there. Okay, so that is the process. We also want to exclude the eyeballs. So right now, let me just turn off the that part, and we having the eyeballs. Now I don't know the name, but as soon when you are clicking on something, it will automatically select it in the subtool list. So the little trick that I like to use, if I'm clicking on it and selecting Alt click, and I'm right away holding down Shift key and clicking on this arrow, and it will bring this to the top. So if you want to lower it because of hierarchy, you can lower it with 1, no Shift pressed, and then hit rename, and rename it to female head FH, BM like Basemesh, and that will be eyes. Okay. Proper naming is quite crucial, especially if you want to reuse it. So what I like is the project shortcut. So FH, what type of model it is, BM is like the base mesh, and the body part. Just to keep things organized, for example, this will be the eyes, upper lid, eyes, lower lid, this will be ears, and this will be ears behind, and neck and throat 1, neck, throat 1, neck, throat 2, neck, mastoid, and shoulders. Okay, so if an area is consisting of multiple parts, it's a good idea to rename it. So mouth top, mouth bottom, and nose, of course, if you have multiple parts for that as well. So just keep things organized and keep things low poly as possible. Okay, so once we have that, we need to be sure that this one is set to start. So head start 1 is there. That means it's only a single item. It won't be welded to anything. Eyes are not welded to anything else. And this sphere 3D will be welded to 15 other parts. And we have subdivisions. So if you forgot to handle subdivisions, you may experience something like this. It's going to Boolean, and Boolean is not applicable. Here we are selecting this, and it may be because of the resolution. Okay, so when you see that live Boolean is applied, so this one's turned on, and we should okay, so now it's enabled. We can give it a go and see if it's working fine or not. So union remeshing and U-mesh, and now we have these three objects. Okay, so again, just make sure you have everything organized. You have the start sets. Let me show this. So you have the start sets. We have 17 elements here. Start here, start here, start here, and then U-mesh and Shift F, and now we have this single object, and as you see, it's welded. Okay, so now it's a single model, and this is why it's important to have that single model. Okay, and I have accidentally created something here. Let me just troubleshoot this. So we have eyeballs, but we have eyeballs within here as well, and those are welded into the model, which one is not really ideal. Okay, I have to fix it. No problem. Now how to fix it. So geometry is working this way. If you hit on mirror and weld, it will mirror the right side to the left one. So it will mirror basically the eyeballs, which one is, it's not really good for us. But right now, if we have a similar issue, you can go to Deformation, Mirror, and then go to Geometry, Modify Topology, and Mirror and Weld, and it will mirror the empty side because it's flipped. And then we can go to Subtool and turn this back on, and now it's there. So this is where we are. Now, another issue with the eyeballs is before we are going on, it's a good idea to paint the eyeballs slightly, or just keep in mind how the eyeballs are looking. So keep an eye on this. Okay, right now, because our main purpose here is to fix these things, I will leave it as it is and move on with the fixing part. So choose a standard brush. Right now I'm using a move brush, and the Sculptris Pro is not available. I will use the BCL clay brush, and now it becomes available. And if I'm using the BMV brush again, it will be still active, but I cannot click on it. It's a common beginner mistake, or a little bit disturbance in the force if you have that. But let me go back to BCL Clay 2 brush, and now we can fix on a few areas. So right now I will use smooth, and as you see, this smoothing is generating new geometry, but also breaking up the old. So if you are using the smaller brush size, it will generate a little bit smaller resolution. So it's good in some cases, but it's not that good in all cases. So right now I'm using a lower resolution mesh, and using the clay brush, and I'm filling the gaps here, and maybe a BFA brush, and flatten these areas a little slightly to create a better blend. Okay, so now this is a little bit better blend. Here I'm just working now in the blend areas, BCL, Clay 2, and just filling up the areas. Some of the areas should be filled up a little bit more, and here we definitely want to have more. So if you see the reference head, this part of the flash of the skin is going up on the nose, so you definitely want to clean that up and use a smoothing. And the smoothing with, the reason I like to use Sculptris, this was a very great software it was about 23 megabytes free sculpting software before ZBrush acquired it, and they made a magic with this by building it in, because it's doing wonders here, because the smoothing is not just simply smoothing the existing geometry, it's also changing the geometry. And for this reason, the effect of the smoothing will be different than your normal smoothing tools when you are keeping the geometry intact. So this is why one of the best cleanup solutions is to use the Sculptris method. Okay, going on here, filling up BCL. We are filling this up slightly. So here, this is usually not as harsh, and using a little bit of a smooth, filling it up. And usually there's a little bump in here. Okay, let's let me just dial down and just use a simple little bit of a smoothing. And as you see, I'm still about a 100K. Okay, so it's really low. You don't have to go any crazy heights. I will use a BDS Dem Standard brush and create this kind of a wrinkle here. Maybe, do we have a lazy mouse that's strong enough? Yeah, no, lazy mouse is a little bit better. Okay, I don't want to use and adjust the stroke too much. However, I should do that, but right now I don't want to explain all the settings with stroke, so I will just leave it as it is. It's a fairly young face, so I don't want to go and add too much. And as you see, I'm filling this with the clay brush and generate that kind of a bag below the eye, and just smoothing this, not crazy, but a little bit, and it's just giving back the life to the figure. Okay, let me go with this, and just smoothing around and add to it light strokes, and going on, and that's it. Be careful. Usually the smooth size could be a little bit smaller. There's a special settings for that, but right now we don't want to go overboard. And yeah, smoothing things up. Make sure that this connection is working properly. Make sure you have the cavities worked out. So we want to see shadows in it, and be an inflate brush, but be careful because it's just a gentle touch with inflate. You don't need to go any crazy with that. Maybe, okay, it's very low in resolution, so okay, just going in here and smooth and BMV and move it around. So now we have the nostrils created, and of course the lips, filling up the gaps. So for example, here this connection is really odd. If you see it here, we have a shape. Let me just pull that in and use my pen tool, and here we have this shape that's going on. So this is a straight transition, so it's a straight transition from this shape to that. It's a very important muscle and a very important shape. So the lips are actually coming from this corner and turning inside out. So it's going inside, but here is skin, here's the lip, is going into the mouth. So right now, if we just turn this off, we have to find that and fix that in here because it's going off. So I will use BMT to pull this part a little bit higher and make that change so it's a little bit higher here, and using the BCL clay 2 brush and smoothing it around and adding volume and adding some volume to this. Again, moving around and using a smooth brush to break it up, and using a smooth brush here and using a smooth brush here. And the smooth brush is actually creating new geometry as well, so don't forget that we have that too. And the Cupid's arc, this is called the Cupid's arc. so we can use BMT and make that change as well. So this is going a little bit higher up. Here this is going a little bit lower. So we have this reach going on, and right now this is a little bit frowned, so I will use a BMV brush and turning off perspective and just move this down, and we can move this up, making a slight expression to it, perspective turning back on, and going down depending on what you need and what you want to create. Okay. Right. So that's where we are. We have now a kind of a Basemesh, and this is the logic in general on how things could be done. And again, the process is simple. We can use the BCL brush and clean up the joints, fill the gaps, use the smooth in general, and you can use the standard brush to create some cavities if you need to. This is in general, this is how it works. Same for the areas like here. So smoothing and clay brush will allow you, especially if you're enlarging the smoothing brush, you can see how this blend will be happening, and then you can switch to a smaller brush and work on that area, and just by smoothing you are generating new geometry and the mesh will be smoother. Okay, so this is, again, it's quite a tricky thing for the first time if you're not used to this, but it's very, very generous. Here's also because of the mismatch of the geometry, so you can use Alt key to push this in. So Alt key and push this geometry in, because we have the helixes going into Alt key and create a cavity inside. So that's one way. We want to create this this helix part, so we're also using that, and it's still below 2K. So now I'm just increasing intensity, so it's only about creating the rhythm and creating division. So here's the tragus, and then we can add a match to the tragus, a blend here. So now it's blended. We can resize it a little bit. So it's cleaning up. Now it's getting better and better. And of course, from the front, usually we have this BMV, we have this kind of an indent. So the helix is going like this, and the inside of the helix here, let me just mask it. So I'm using Control and Mask. So this area is actually a little bit pulled out. So let me just go in here. So this is looking like this. It's slightly pulled out. Usually you can rotate it, Q and drag, and just smooth it around, and break it up, and then just go back and smooth the details. And we are using the BCL again to add more to it, and then my bad, using the cavities and smooth things around. This hole is like an S shape, so it's going in and turning. Okay, so it's going in like this direction and then turns into like this, and smoothing around. And the Sculptris is great to create cavities like this. Okay, smoothing, a little bit of a BMV brush, and pulling the earlobe, slight changes, and then you can go and create further details. So BDS, damn standard, and you can just carve this in a little bit better and move things around. Okay, so it's not a perfect here, it's just really a drafty one. It may be easier if you are creating it first in the Basemesh mode, but BMT, but it's always up to you. Okay, so that's where we are. This is how it works. This is basically the process of the thing. And once you have, let me just quickly and crudely do this, so we can fill this up. We can fill this up, and we can add some negatives here, and the clavicles will be there. So remove and adding some negatives and building it up. And yeah, basically that's the throat part, and add and smooth. So right now this is the technique to rough it up with a larger brush to smooth it, and then just simply going in, and it is generating a fairly nice and relatively clean result for you. Okay, so once this is done, we can use ZRemesher. So I will Shift F. This is the model that we have, and I like to duplicate it just for kind of safety. So now this model is duplicated, and I don't need this one. And the purpose of using ZRemesher is not just going into details, but it's also cleaning up the shapes a little bit, because no matter how good you are, Sculptris will generate some not odd shapes, but it maybe sometimes it breaks up the surface a little bit more than you necessarily need to or want to. So this is why a ZRemesher with about a 10K resolution, Symmetry is on, can help you to get a cleaner result, and you will see just in a second. And it's fairly even, because you know Sculptris is not even, and the surface will look a lot better if it's fairly even. So here's now the ZRemeshed face, and if I'm pressing Ctrl D and subdivide it, as you see, the mesh is a lot more clean. So if I go in here, subtool, and selecting my mesh and selecting this one and move it to the side in comparison, yeah, not this way, symmetry is off. So if I do this, I can see the difference. So especially around the mouth, so here these shapes are a little bit broken because the resolution, the 10K resolution is not high enough to get back all the details, but it will get back the main and general part, and then you can fine tune and sculpt more into it. Okay, so you can still go in here, select it, and for example be the ASDAM standard, and just add more the mesh subdivision levels. Yeah, we have Sculptris. Okay, Sculptris cancelled. Yeah, so thank you. So now we can add a little bit of a grin around. We can go with the inflate brush and work on the lips, because right now those lips are a little bit eroded. So we can add that to BMV and fine tune this this area, BDS, and just adding an Alt key and adding the ridge. For example, just emphasize the edges around the mouth, for example, and just using simple smoothing and adding that detail. Okay, so this is how it goes, and you can emphasize this wrinkle that's usually there if you want to add here. And this is not perfectly done, so you still need to fix things around, but again, it's still not a perfect mesh. So there will be more steps to clean up, but this is a long process. The other thing that you need to consider is painting. So it may help you if you have the eyeballs painted. So let me just quickly show how that's done. So here's our Basemesh for a sculpting project. It's not the parted paint mesh, but Basemesh, but it's a little bit one step further. As I promised, this is and kind of a overall workflow process that I present here. So for the eyeballs, they could be sometimes tricky because the sight, the look of the eye is very critical for a human portrait. So it's a good idea to have a good eyes. So I'm creating a new sphere, and rotate it around to be fully 90 degrees, just like previous times. And now I will turn off the visibility of everything else, and I will match this eyeball. Okay, so I will match this eyeball to the one that we have already. Turn off perspective, move it around, and just make a better. Oh, I don't want to accidentally rotate it, so no way. We are just moving this, moving up. Okay, if it's not 100%, we can survive it, but it's better if we match it as closely as possible. So it's right up the bottom. Yeah, it's fairly close. I can make it slightly bigger. Okay, so this is the eyeball, and I will rename it to female head Basemesh Eye HD or painted. And just to be ready with the paint, the resolution is fairly off. It's not enough to poly paint, so I will Control D, subdivide it further. That's 32,000 and even more. So it's a decent amount. I'm not sure yet if it's okay, but I have high hopes on this. And let me turn off the visibility of this one. And right now Shift F, so it's quite dense. Go back to Q and use the paintbrush. BPA is the paintbrush. And we have to have the transform. If you don't have transform open, this is how it goes. Transform, drag this, drop it here. If you don't have this sidebar open, you can double tap and open this up. And activating symmetry, but this will be radial symmetry. So, and radial symmetry means it's going in a radial way. Now, I want to use local symmetry, so that matches to the object. The object is not in the middle, so this is why local symmetry can become handy. And not X, but Y-axis. Y-axis is like this axis. So if I start painting, but with a color that's actually visible, I can paint like this. And of course, right now it's crude because we have only 8 separations. So I will set it to 32, which one is a lot higher. I can use a smaller brush and start painting with a black little dot in here, and maybe changing a little bit of a grayish tone, and just adding it up, and maybe a slightly darker, and just using the RGB intensity to fade it. So I would just use a slight thing. And you can also blur this, but if you're holding down Shift key, be careful because by default it blurs the geometry as well. So if you turn this off and you're holding Shift key, it will just blur the paint, right? So that's where we are, and just creating this outer line. Well, it's way too small, yeah, and the intensity is off. And the number of segments is not enough, so I will just 64 it and use the black, and that's where we are. And now blurring it, and this is kind of an eyeball as is. So we can get back the 3D mesh. Show which one is this. We are already solo mode, not exactly. V. So we are going back with this one. This is the mesh we're looking for, I guess. Yeah. So here's the eye. Here's the eyeball. And as I see, this paint is looking fairly small. So what I will do is I will use C to copy the picture and just make a little bit larger. C from copying the white part, creating a little bit of a highlight here. And C for the gray, and enlarge this gray zone, and maybe a little bit of a darker tone to the outer edge. And that's it basically, and we can create another light rim around here, or yeah, light rim around here. And using the blur, just to blur it up. Wow, this intensity is way too much, so we cannot the Z add, but the RGB intensity, lower it down, And look what's going on here. So this is the eye, and of course, once you have that, let me turn off this RGB and whole thing. We can turn off L symmetry and Ctrl Shift D to duplicate it and move it to the other corner. So now we have these eyes. So these are the eyes. Let me check this. I'm just eyeballing it. It's not mirrored. The reason it's not mirrored, because if you wish, you can rotate these things around. So if you want to model a certain look, or you have a reference picture and you want to achieve that, I'm using perspective now, so you can work on that, and that can help you a lot. Okay, so I will just move these eyes back. Shift F, is it the right eye? Okay, so here we are. Now these eyes are there, and we can select the head and use the BPA brush to create the eyebrows. We don't necessarily have to create a very dark eyebrow, so I will just pick a kind of a grayish tone and use it as a palette. And just draft it. So here may be the eyebrows, or this could be a little bit lower. It's not, honestly, it's not easy to paint the eyebrows. Okay, it's not that easy to do it. Sometimes you have to look around and find the right solution and size and shape. And I'm pressing C and use it as an eraser, so I'm painting with white and painting back with the eyebrow a little bit. Okay, so that's basically the basic idea. You can also paint the lips a little bit darker. I will turn off the lazy mouse. So now the lips are a little bit darker, and we can just paint some little bit of a highlight with a white and white here, and use the smooth, and turn off the add. Make sure it's not smoothing out anything else, just the paint. But the RGB intensity is low, so that will add a little bit more. Okay, so now we have that model. Okay, so that's basically a direction where we can go, and I will just rotate around, select the eye, and rotate around and create a kind of a look. And so now this is a direction, for example. And if you can mock up the head. The hair as a volume. So copying this darker, paint it darker slightly. Okay, so this is just a general idea on briefly on how to create your own 3D head based on the 3D reference that you have, and you can create fairly good custom content even if you are not that much familiar with sculpting, because it's kind of a safe operation if you are using these blocking meshes and if you are understanding how the Geons are working in practice. So I hope you enjoyed this and have a good time. Practice it. Don't forget to properly naming things. Don't forget to save it frequently. And whenever you get lost, go back to theory. Spend some time when you're watching a movie or watching someone on the street, looking around for references. Please try to understand what you're actually seeing, how the forms are related, which one's bigger, what's the direction, how the highlight goes in, and things like that. So again, hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for your time, and see you in the next video. Goodbye.